I'm Eva Zanettin.
I'm Raghav Pasricha, and we were both doing photography independently. And then after photography school at New York, we started thinking of multimedia and film, and that's where Syncretic Traditions of India was born. The work itself is an excerpt from our project called Syncretic Traditions of India. The excerpt that we showed at the Biennale is called Crossing the Divide. And before I get into that, it might be useful to understand what we mean by the Syncretic Traditions of India. Part of the ethic in which I was educated was about an India that has a lot of diversity. And while I experienced it since childhood, over the years, Eva has shared in that understanding of India as being a culturally rich, diverse country. So we began to ask the question of what does faith mean, Not just religion and spirituality, but what is the experience of faith in India, because it's so important to everyone. So Syncretic Traditions of India was about finding these incredible traditions that are born out of the Bhakti and Sufi movement that have guided people for somewhere between 1200 to 750 years to have an individual relationship with the divine. It's like a legacy that both of us got from our families, through the music that they introduced us to, through the poetry and literature they introduced us to, and that's what we took forward. At the Biennale, we are showing, as I said, Crossing the Divide. And this is a documentation of the Baul and Fakir communities of Bengal. We had heard Baul music with my family at home. My Masi is a singer, and we had heard Baul Gan with her, and it was beautiful, but neither one of us is Bengali speaking, not Bangla Bhashi. But one of the sort of take homes from that, through conversations with my mother and my aunt very specifically, was that Bauls are singing mystic poetry, so to speak, but that mystic poetry often has a profound understanding of something we call humanism. So the basic questions that we began with is, who are the Bauls? Where do they come from geographically? And where do they come from historically? Geography, as you said, many people believe or assume that they come from Bengal. Now, one has to point out that this is not just West Bengal, but Bangladesh, and including parts of Assam, so Greater Bengal, if you would. Who are they? This is a more contentious subject, which we in fact deal with in our film. If you ask a lot of people in Bengal, if you ask Baul kake bole, they'll tell you, oh, Baul khub bhalo gaan kore, loko sangit. The fact that Bauls have a sadhana they are the part of a great tradition, a philosophy, is sort of sometimes lost. It's not always lost. There are many people very aware of that. But often they're described as singers or wandering minstrels, which is, I would say, less than 10% of the story. So that was what we began to investigate with the film and document, really.
After researching a lot about the topic and about them and about reading a lot about the philosophy, we finally decided to go and document on the field. And we spent quite a lot of time with them. Um, One of the things I guess that I took into my daily life, and while I was there, I was noticing and I was telling myself, try to bring this home and keep it with you. It's the fact that they do live in harmony. They try to avoid feelings, negative feelings such as greed, anger, jealousy, and they do try to maintain respectful relationship. They're really driven by love, respect. They don't want any discriminations, religious, politics, gender. So I think at the base of all of it, there's great teachings that someone can take into their daily lives.
We're looking at a 1200-year long tradition, which is contemplating the human condition, which is contemplating gender, which is contemplating religion, which is contemplating materialism, which is contemplating conflict and violence. You can pick any subject in the world, really, and I think by and large you'd have a Baul Gan that addresses it. And it's not dated. That's what's incredible. That Bauls see gender as a continuum. It's there in our film, it's there in the music we've recorded. They see gender as a continuum. They see materialism as a part of the way society functions. They don't condemn it, and yet they build a distance from it. So they have a very, grand legacy, 1200-year-old tradition, as I said, but their perspective is not just modern, it's contemporary. And that's what we went out looking for in Crossing the Divide. We went across 5 districts of Bengal because through our research and conversations with people like Mukul Das and Uttam Das, who's our project mentor, who runs the Arshinagar Ashram and the Praner Bagan Festival, we realized that there are philosophical strands within the Bauls, and we wanted to create a representative kind of documentation. We want to try to the best of our abilities, which I'll be the first one to admit, and I think Eva agree, is limited, to translate Baul poetry, their philosophy, their lives from Bangla to English and make it more accessible to a global audience, to a younger Indian audience. And that's why we're doing this. That's why we're out there making photos, films, recordings. Finally, it's not about what we're doing, it's about what the Mahajani Padavali offers. And that tradition of Mahajani Padavali lives within the Bauls.